Gray Zone Warfare is an incredible game, and I know there's some data out there that might suggest otherwise. There's something truly special about a persistent open world looter shooter PvEVP extraction type elements that make this game feel so alive and so immersive when you're playing it. I do a really deep dive of this in my video here about why exactly I think this is, for the many people who are truly curious of what makes this game a really incredible concept and idea. And from the things I've read and understood about this game, I am at this point truly a believer it's going to go places other tactical shooters have never been before. When the developers have routinely stated that this game is only about 20% fully realized, my imagination explodes with ideas about what this game could be. And boy, I have a lot of them. I think Gray Zone Warfare is a foundation of something truly special and could rival the greatest tactical shooters of all time. Don't hate me for saying this, but yes, even Tarkov, Arma, and Call of Duty. But that's only if they follow an incredibly important formula, which I think they're very aware of. And that's important if any of us as consumers are going to take this game seriously, because what this game is now compared to what it could be are two very different things. And I think that's clear by the player count. Let's be honest. So assuming that you did watch my deep dive of why I think Gray Zone Warfare is such a kick-ass game, by the way, go over there, watch it, check it out. I wanted to make this video on the things I really do need to see from this game. The things that, if they were implemented, would by far make this my favorite game, and I think would most certainly make it majority of other people's favorite game who might be interested in the tactical shooter space. Now, there are a lot of things I could suggest in this video, but I do want to hear it from you guys. Make sure you guys comment down below and let me know if I've missed anything in particular, because the community for these types of games are crucial, and ignoring the consumers is just ridiculous, and we need more ideas to be brought to the table if all of us want to expect better games into the future. Now, I'm sure many of you are already aware that their 0.3 update is coming this quarter, which should be, any day now. And it brings many cool things, many things that people have been looking forward to in a game like this. A PvP focused update with control and capture points and more information on the map that can help you get into these PvP situations. Another thing I got to give kudos to the developers for is listening to the community this time. And this isn't just a PvP update. They're adding incredibly immersive weather effects and more PvE elements such as squad tasking and adding to the task board altogether, which is great because just because they have a bunch of content creators screaming at them of what they need to do to have a successful game, they're still aware of their core identity and what's going to be important to Gray Zone Warfare, which is, in matter of fact, a in-depth PvE system. I wouldn't be making this video if I wasn't a true believer that Gray Zone Warfare is going to be the greatest tactical shooter to ever hit the market. Whether it's in 5 years or 10, it's gonna happen. And again, you'll have to watch my other video of me explaining why. But for now, let's talk about what we need to see come to Gray Zone Warfare to have this dream realized for, the developers and us as gamers. And I will be talking about both PvE and PvP aspects. I play more PvP type games. I love Escape from Tarkov, but adding a seriously in-depth PvE element to an ecosystem that has chance encounters of PvP are incredibly crucial. It's like that sweaty Tarkov Chad friend that tells you he never cares about loot, that he's in Tarkov for the competition, but he would never tell you that Tarkov would be a better game if they just removed all the loot altogether. He would never tell you without lying that looting a crate or going to an area with incredibly hard AI bosses where you can get high value loot doesn't add to that dopamine hit and defines a character in a story that you're building every single raid that you go into. And I'm going to be referring to Tarkov a lot because I know the game well, and for how many things they've done wrong, they've done 10 things right. And a deep understanding of what they've done right is going to help Gray Zone Warfare become a better game. Now, it goes without saying, Gray Zone Warfare needs serious optimization. The performance of the game sucks, and that attributes to poor visuals when you're scoping in, trying to track targets in this game. It's certainly come a long way since its release, but it's got even further to go before it can be called complete. Now, this is a point that shouldn't even be talked about because it's obvious, but I do want to bring it up because it's probably the biggest and most screaming issue with the game, because it doesn't matter how amazing or incredible your ideas are. If you can't even play it on 50% of PCs, then nobody's gonna even give a shit. Now, I do want to broach that, of course, they are deep in development in this game, and it would kind of make sense to try and optimize everything when they have all the features actually in the game. That way they're not going back in between adding huge systems and optimizing and adding huge systems and optimizing. I think getting that massive optimization piece at the end might be easier for the developers, but who knows? I'm not a game developer, so for whatever that is worth, it still needs to be said. Gray Zone Warfare needs to be optimized. I guarantee if this game was running like butter right now, we would see 10 times the amount of players that we currently have. That being said, 10 times the amount of players that we currently do have 5 still isn't a lot. That would be like 25,000, maybe 30,000 players. And that's okay, because what I want to suggest today is going to add many in-depth layers, not only when it comes to their PvE, but also their PvP. Now, one of the biggest things I'm going to mention here, especially being somebody who just discovered the Stalker Gamma mod pack, and I've been really sinking my teeth into it, is yes, some form of actual A-life in Gray Zone Warfare. We not only should have scavs that are looting dead bodies and going from place to place, but we should have different enemy NPC factions that are taking over POIs and running into each other on their routes throughout Lemang Island. This would not only add a huge sense of life to the PvE element in this game, but it would make it a little bit harder to distinguish every single gunshot that happens. Right now, I feel like the meta in the game is to sit in a bush at a major POI and just wait a good 10 minutes for any gunshots to happen, because if they do and it's not a teammate, you immediately know exactly where the enemy is. This game needs to be built in a way where if it were a complete single player experience, it would be as good as, say, Stalker Gamma. I think having an incredibly in-depth AI system would add a ton to this game and also cater to the people that want to do PvE servers. Now, there's another aspect I want to talk about when it comes to this. Like when you show up to a POI, the AI should also be interacting with the environment that they're in. Maybe sitting around a campfire, maybe eating and playing cards inside of a room. They have the little fuse boxes outside of the buildings that you can actually switch off. Say you make some noise or you do cut the power, they should react to that. They should go, wait, what was that? Like, what's going on? They should be on middle alert. There should be like a no alert, low alert, middle alert, and like high alert setting that these AI have programmed into them. They should also have a program where when they show up to a POI to set up camp, that they switch into this bunker type mode where they're interacting with all of the elements at the POI just like that. But of course, it would be awesome if they say showed up and there was another enemy AI faction there and they were fighting with them and the world was truly persistent without any player engagement at all. Not just with time and the day-night cycles, but with the AI enemy factions. So truly, in my opinion, I think Gray Zone Warfare needs some sort of massive A-life system. I'm not sure how hard this would be to simulate, being that it's a massive 60 square kilometer map in Unreal Engine 5, which is funny to say because as of the making of this video, Stalker 2 is about to implement this same type of A-life system into their 62 square kilometer map that so happens to be built in Unreal Engine 5. So we will see how this works out. And if they can get that system working in a way that doesn't feel watered down, we'll all know it's possible. And I definitely think Gray Zone Warfare needs this. Like I said, I love PvP games and those are the ones that I mainly play. So I love playing a single player game that keeps me engaged in such a way where the pure dynamic of its world is keeping me engaged for a very long time. So I guess you could say this would be my second suggestion in this video. First being vehicles and the second being an actual A-life system. Now, the third I would have to say would be more environmental disasters such as wildlife, radiation, landmines, and or other dangerous things within the environment that might make certain areas higher value, yet far more dangerous to try and go loot. Having dangerous wildlife like jaguars, almost making the map feel like Far Cry in a way, would add to the key ingredients of what makes these games so good in the first place, is dynamicism. Now, I know what you're thinking, and that something like this could make the game feel incredibly tacky, but yes, you'd have to do it in a tasteful way. Not in the Far Cry way where you're trying to basically go anywhere, like swim across a little river and a shark just grabs you and rips off your arm every time you step into some water, but something that adds a little bit of necessity to your awareness, something that makes you pay attention just slightly more to the environment. The reason dynamicism is so important is because it keeps you engaged. It keeps your brain active on what's going on at all times. It's like you're adding little mini games on top of the entire gameplay loop of going into a POI, looting, killing enemy players, and getting back by the skin of your teeth. And that leads me to my fourth suggestion. Is a fourth or I don't fucking know. But anyway, I want to talk about Ground Zero in the middle of the map. This massive hazardous zone that hasn't even been modeled yet, and you can't currently go into or else you'll die from radiation poisoning. It is the center of their mystery within Gray Zone Warfare. It is the anomalous event that affected the entire island, making the entire civilian population evacuate, with bandit and military factions taking over the region and taking advantage of the instability. Now, when I think about Ground Zero, it really does get my imagination going on what you could do with this, particularly when it comes to the gameplay loop. And that's starting with tactical equipment. Gray Zone Warfare already has amazing implementation of NVGs. They're done super well. They look incredible. I think they need to make them slightly more accessible and actually sell some of the better pairs for an expensive price instead of just making them RNG. But the economy of that game is in such an early state right now that I won't speculate on what they might do in this section. But when it comes to equipment and a highly dangerous environment, especially when it comes to Ground Zero, I think that this area could require some sort of hazmat suit. Maybe it's a hazmat suit you need to grind for or buy or level up to be able to get. In this ground zero area could add another layer to the gameplay loop of going into a dangerous POI and getting high value loot. But without the added protection and the added steps you need to take to get there, you won't even be able to enter the area in the first place, making this area highly contested amongst all factions and adding a bit more depth to the overall gameplay loop itself. Now, of course, this area should have higher value loot, but I think this could go even further. And I know I sound like a total stalker cultist shill when I talk about some of these ideas, but I do want to say my unfiltered opinion of what could add a lot of flavor to this gameplay. Perhaps this area should play a lot like Stalker. Before I lose you, just imagine you're playing a huge segment of this game as a tactical shooter grounded in realism and intense tactical moments, to only find out after like 80 or 100 hours of gameplay there's an entirely new layer of the game that you have to interact with that is far different from the experience that you've had thus far. Going into ground zero could be something otherworldly. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Annihilation, where they go into this insane anomalous zone and plants are mutated and creatures are mutated and everything's just a little bit off, you know, a little bit trippy. Now, it doesn't have to be that crazy, but it would be awesome to go into those areas and emulate the Stalker loop all over again. Going into a field of physics breaking anomalies where you have to hunt for artifacts and dilapidated urban centers that might be taken over by mutants would be such a sick layer to this game. And this isn't me just trying to turn this game into Stalker, because it's just one area in the game. This isn't something I'd want for the whole game. I think that tactical realism that they have so far is perfect. Make that a massive and so far majority part of that game. But going into ground zero should be that with this extra element of science fiction, where the environment has so much more to throw at you, but you have so much more to gain by going in there. It should have plenty of end game missions and be enticing for most players to want to actually go in there and risk some gear. It should have special weather, such as emission storms where you have to take cover, a variety of mutated animals, perhaps a dilapidated city center, and of course a type of gameplay loop where if you die you can't just fly back into it and grab your gear and run out. Being that the zone is so radiated and you would need hazmat material to survive in, I think would negate that problem in Gray Zone Warfare currently, where if you get killed you can just fly back, grab your gear. And for a lot of people that's a little bit of a silly aspect about that game, and I half agree. I get it. It's nice that you can go get your gear, but it's also weird that you just come back in 5 minutes, and degrades that risk versus reward aspect. I think that they could fix this with the ground zero area. So yes, make this game Stalker, go all the way and some, but only in that area, and integrate it into the gameplay loop and the quest line in a tasteful way where a massive amount of your play session in the game will be grounded in tactical realism. This would add a cornucopia of layers to this game that would never be seen in any other game. Again, the closest thing I could think of is Stalker Gamma, that has so many mods and content in the game where it feels like a grounded tactical shooter game with huge amounts of sci-fi aspects to it. But if they could pull this off tastefully in Gray Zone Warfare, where those elements wouldn't subvert from the tactical realism the game already has, but just adds to the gameplay loop in general, I think it could be incredibly special and could cater to many different types of players with many types of interests when it comes to FPS games, without, might I add, diluting the experience, without just trying to make this game for everybody, but specifically good for many people. And yes, I would say there's a big difference in that. Now, I already talked about this. Yes, I do think they should add a city to this map or some sort of large urban area. I don't think we can talk about urban areas in tactical shooter games without thinking about Streets of Tarkov and how incredible that map is and beautifully handcrafted it is. Something like that in Gray Zone Warfare would be badass, and it would be a nice break from the jungles and bushes, and again would be a huge contrast to what we currently have without diluting the gameplay experience that we have in Gray Zone Warfare currently. Now, I know a lot of things that I'm suggesting seem incredibly far-fetched for a game like this where it's just a bushy South Asian tactical shooter, but right now all we have is a foundation, and according to the developers, 20% of a game that we want to have in the future. This 20% so far is an excellent foundation, sans the optimization, of course. Now that I'm making this video, there is actually a lot of other things I want to suggest, but I'm gonna cap it here because I don't want to make it too long, and I think what they could do with Ground Zero is my biggest point, but I know a lot of you guys will have far better suggestions if you just comment them down below. I would really love to read them and possibly do a video on them in the future, you know, farm some ideas off of you for free. You know, I'd appreciate that. Thank you guys for watching. Hit the like button, consider subscribing. Being the small channel that I am, it really helps me out. I love talking about things that I love. Who doesn't? And it will tell me that you guys want to see more videos like this into the future. Have yourselves a very nice day.